There have been 39 mass shootings in the United States in just the last 3 weeks. The U.S. has now seen more mass shootings in 2023 than at this point in any year on record. According to the Gun Violence Archive, nearly 70 people have been killed, and the number of victims is climbing nearly every day from the mass shootings that we're tracking. One concern after back-to-back mass shootings like this, Andy, is did one inspire the other? Did the first accelerate the second? I don't know if that's knowable, obviously, in this moment, probably not.
That's just some of CNN's breathless coverage of the string of mass shootings in California over the past few days. It's horrific, although by no means the leading cause of preventable death in California. Any given week, 45 people are murdered in California alone. 18 died in the mass shootings that those folks on CNN were so upset about. Another 100 plus died just in California of fentanyl overdoses. For some reason, you don't hear about that much. 56,000 Americans overdosed from fentanyl in 2020. By comparison, roughly 20,000 were shot and killed in homicides in the same year. There aren't necessarily agreed upon statistics about the definition of mass shootings, but a tiny percentage of those killed by guns were killed in quote unquote mass shootings. Just listen, if you want to understand the danger of fentanyl, to the public health director in Seattle talking about the issue of drug abuse there.
A key indication of just how bad things are at the end of 2022 and likely to get worse in 2023, the medical examiner's office is now struggling with the issue of storing bodies because the fentanyl-related death toll continues to climb. That is the story across the country, across all major metro areas, across all medical examiners' offices.
Leland Woodhouse is here, freelance journalist, documentary filmmaker. It's good to have you. You've spent an enormous amount of time in your career studying the drug problem in America, and specifically now is the opioid epidemic turned into the fentanyl crisis. Why does nobody else care?
Well, I saw your intro and comparing mass shootings in California to the casualties of fentanyl. And the scary thing is, Michael Schellenberger and I just wrote about this in our publication Public. We may be approaching the point where these two problems are converging. Just last week, there was a mass shooting in the Central Valley of California of a family. 6 people were slaughtered, including a 16-year-old mother and her 10-month-old infant in what was, it's unclear exactly who the suspects were, but it appears to have very likely to have been a cartel hit. And so this is the drug cartel that controls the meth and fentanyl distribution and retail operation in California and beyond California. We have moved so much of there's been so much gravity in terms of the market for meth and fentanyl has been expanded so much that the cartels may be moving their operations onto the northern side of the border and bringing the violence along with them. So we're talking about fentanyl overdose, as well as perhaps in the near future, the kinds of violence that we've been seeing in Mexico for decades. Yeah,
they're moving here because they can, and because also they're making so much more money, they need to protect their stuff. It's interesting you brought up that 6 killed because it was not breathlessly covered by the media that seems so concerned with gun violence when it is a particular kind of gun violence. Is it that at some point there's a group of people who don't care about fentanyl deaths and then the murders by the drug gangs to allow the fentanyl trafficking because it doesn't give them any political power?
I think that's quite possible. I mean, look, I live in Oakland, and just a couple of days ago, just a mile from where I'm standing right now, there was a mass shooting of 8 people at a gas station. Luckily, only one of them died, but I didn't see any coverage of that. And as you point out, we don't hear nearly enough. I mean, there's a lot of coverage of the fentanyl crisis, but I don't think that we're seeing the kinds of coverage that we need to about the ways in which city officials in cities like San Francisco are creating an environment which is conducive which has turned San Francisco into a huge profit center for the Sinaloa cartel, and that's what we should be talking more about. In fact, Biden is just on the any day now. He's going to make a decision on whether to effectively legalize what are called supervised consumption sites, which are essentially drug dens that are overseen by the government nationwide. We have one of those, or we had until recently one of those in San Francisco. And so if this happens, then we're going to be seeing what we're seeing in San Francisco and cities across the United States and small towns too.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.